Looks like we are. So welcome everybody. My name is Kathleen Jasper, and today we are working on our ESOL ESL webinar. And so I just want you guys to understand that it doesn't matter which test you're taking, whether it's ESOL, ESL, what state you're in. I've been studying all of the blueprints and test specifications for this test, and they all test relatively the same thing. Some states have specific things for their states, but for the most part, it's all the same. And so today I'm going to go through several different practice test questions from different states, and I will show you, exactly how that looks on the test. We're going to just scratch the surface today. We're not getting in deep. There are so many more questions, so many more concepts that will take a longer class to kind of go over. And I will be doing a longer class next weekend, but this weekend's kind of like the starter kit so that you guys can get the feel of what's going on. All right. In the description, actually, I think in the descriptions, let me just change something really quick. I know I'm live, but I'm going to change something really quick. I think it says math. Yes, it does. Let me update the titles really quick. ESOL live. And I'm going to, sorry about that. If you're in Facebook or whatever, I am going to change the description right now so that you can get access to the stuff. Let me just put that in there. Okay, boom. Should update the titles now. Sorry about that. I forgot to do that while I was prepping for all of this. So, all right, so here we go. We're going to ESOL. I'm going to share my screen with you. Again, my name is Kathleen Jasper. My company is Kathleen Jasper, LLC. We have test prep for all kinds of certification exams. Some of you are new here, welcome. And if you come to all of our webinars and you're kind of a veteran or a part of our community, I'm so glad to see you again. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're talking about ESOL and ESL. And remember, it doesn't really matter whether your test says ESOL or ESL. You are basically a teacher of students whose first language is not English, okay? So in Florida, my students here typically, and that doesn't mean every student, but my students typically speak Spanish or Creole. Those are the main ones. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have other students who are from Germany or Portugal or whatever, kids who speak Portuguese, things like that. But for the most part, in the area I live, our students whose first language is not English, they are usually speaking Spanish and Creole. If you live in other parts of the United States, your students might be from other countries, right? If you're in California, you may have a lot of Asian students who speak a certain language. Or if you're in, there's pockets all over the United States where there are communities of people who do not speak English as their first language. So that's basically why you're here. You may need a certification in this in order to continue with your own quest to become a teacher, or you may be specifically an ESOL teacher where that's what you teach all day is ESOL. Either way, you're in the right place, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Some people call it ESOL, some people call it ESL. Regardless, we're talking about the same thing. All right, so one thing that I'd like to focus on here today are the principles of ESOL. Now, these you will see in different areas, but they all kind of outline the same thing. And I'm actually going to change my color to a darker color here so that you can see. There we go. So there are 6 principles, and we're going to engage in these 6 principles today. These are going to be like our guiding objectives for the day. Now, I've seen this on all different types of organizations, associations. Typically, when we're talking about teachers who are teaching ESOL, we generally think of these 6 principles. The first one is to know your learners. To get to know your learners, to understand who they are. They could be high achieving, low achieving. They might have special needs. They might be gifted. Sometimes we fall into this trap where it's like, you're just an English language learner, right? And I always give this example of myself making this mistake. My first couple of years of teaching, I had some students in my class who were from Central America. They did not speak a word of English when they first entered my classroom. And I just assumed like they didn't know what I was talking about. And I hate to say this because it's not, obviously I don't want to be that kind of a teacher, but when you're busy and you're worrying about all these other things, you forget that the English language learners in your class, they might be honors kids. They just don't speak your language. You know what I mean? Or they might be students who need support. They might be students who have special needs, as well as English is not their first language. So you got to really get to know your learners. And I'm going to show you some questions that have to do with that. The second thing is create conditions for language learning. So that's going to be where we create an atmosphere where students feel safe to try the language. I mean, it can be very daunting. I don't know if you guys have ever traveled outside of the United States. I certainly have. I remember being in the middle of a cafe in Italy. It was very busy. And I was there with my husband on our honeymoon, and I couldn't speak Italian. And I was trying to be cool and like kind of try to order in Italian. And it was a hot mess. And I was very like, just totally exposed, felt exposed and weird and awful and all those things. And so in our classrooms, we want to create these conditions for language learning where it's a safe environment for students to try the language, and also to help the students, to scaffold, to differentiate so students understand and can learn the new language. Then principle 3 is design high quality lessons for language development. Okay, high quality. Here's a very, very important thing that you're going to see on the exams. Sometimes people think that accommodations means lowering the standards, or that, scaffolding means making things easier for students. We don't want to do that. We want high expectations for all students. Now, you may have to scaffold, you may have to support, you may have to give students ancillary materials, but we are still responsible for teaching the standards, the academic standards. And to lower those standards or to deliver a not so high quality lesson for these students really puts them at a disadvantage. So we want to make sure that we are designing high quality lessons and delivering high standards for every single student, no matter what level of language acquisition they're in or what level they're in regardless, okay? Principle 4 is going to be adapt language delivery as needed. And this kind of goes with this principle here. And that's going to be lots of differentiation, lots of accommodations, lots of, thinking about the learning preferences of students. Now you're doing this anyways as a teacher, you're differentiating for each kid. Every kid has his or her own kind of way in which he or she thrives in the classroom, but you're going to do that, of course, for English language learners. Number 5, principle 5 is monitor and assess. This is very, 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 very important. Monitor and assess. We want to continuously use formative assessments to measure student progress, to make decisions in the classroom. You hear me talk about this all the time. Assessments are key. Usually students who are ESOL or ESL, they will be screened before they come into your class, so you'll have an idea of at what level they are at. However, beyond that, there are going to be nuances that you're going to want to figure out. So you're going to have to really, assess, dig down, diagnose, intervene when needed, and all of that. So that's a big one. And we're going to talk about that when we get through the questions. And then finally, principle 6, engage and collaborate with a community of practice. Now, this means a couple of things. This means, number 1, that you're engaging with other teachers. So maybe in your PLCs, and I had somebody ask, and I feel so bad because we use so many acronyms, right? ESOL, ESL, ESE, all these things. PLCs are professional learning communities. You may call them team leader meeting or team meetings, things like that. But PLCs are where you engage with your peers, other teachers, to kind of go through data, come up with some action research, and really dig down and figure out how to help your students. So you yourself are collaborating with your peers, just like you have your students collaborate with their peers. And then a community of practice, it's not just like getting together and saying, oh, I had a hard day. I have, 5 monolingual students in my classroom, and I don't have a paraprofessional to help me. And, all of that. That's okay to do in your PLCs for a moment, but really PLCs are about solutions. So it's about engaging in action research, assessing students' capabilities, digging in and figuring out how to intervene properly, coming back and sharing that data and seeing if it worked. And it also means that you're engaging in professional development as it comes to ESOL. So right now on your Saturday, when you're tired and you've had a week, I'm sure if you're a teacher, you probably would rather be sitting on your couch catching up on some Netflix that you missed this week, but you're here with me. And that means you are doing professional development. And that is amazing. So that's another way in which we are going to become better ESOL teachers, is because we're going to engage with our peers and we're going to do professional development. Now, let's talk about principle 1 really quickly. You will see questions like this on the exam. They're gonna try to see if you understand that the community of students who are ESL or ESOL, they are diverse within and among themselves. So we don't want to consider this group of students like a monolith, right? Just like groups of people are not just one way, right? So principle 1 is know your learners. Not all English learners are the same. Some are high achieving. Change that. I had all my colors all set up today. Okay. Some are high achieving. Some have special needs. Some are gifted. Some are highly motivated. And then everything in between. So we have to be really careful here when we talk about our high achieving and our highly motivated. I'm going to start with those really quickly. We don't want to be, giving them too easy of lessons and things like that. We still want to challenge them. Obviously, we have to support them with the language, but we don't want to be giving them, things that are below their grade level. That's where it's a fine line. It's really hard to do because when you have ESOL kids in your class, you want to scaffold and support. And often that means you're doing some things below grade level. For example, if you came into I'm just going to use German as an example here. Okay. Let's say I go to Germany. All right. And I speak English and not German. I'm advanced, right? I have a doctorate. I know a lot. I can read and write and I know all these things, but I don't know German. So, you're going to have to, if you're the teacher, you're going to have to start with those foundational skills, but you're still going to have to find a way to challenge me so that I don't get bored and walk out of your class, right? So that's kind of the fine line there. When we think about that on the test, we always want to be striving for those high expectations for all students, right? And then you're highly motivated. Those kids are the ones who are like, I want to learn a new language. I'm ready to go. I want to learn English. I'm practicing every night, Then you got other kids who have brothers and sisters at home who they have to help take care of. They might be living in poverty. Maybe not. Not all English language learners are living in poverty. We have to be careful. We're not stereotyping, but some might be. And their, English worksheet is not the top of their list at the moment. So we have to kind of differentiate and understand our learners. You will have students who are special needs, who are also ESL, but we have to be careful here. And I'll talk about this further in the presentation, and you'll see this on the exam. You do not want to make the mistake of diagnosing somebody as special needs when really the student just doesn't speak English as his or her first language. That used to happen a lot. It doesn't happen as much now. But what would happen is you'd see somebody struggling with the language and you go, oh, this kid's below level, he needs to go into a special needs class. And really it was just that he just needs support in learning a new language. So we have to be careful. Some ESL kids do need special needs support. Others just have language barriers. And you will see questions like that on the test. So you never want to lump everyone into one place. Then you have your gifted students who have their own special accommodations that they need. And then, of course, everything in between. Your kids are not going to fit into these 5 bullets. They're going to be all over the place, just like everyone. And I'm sure you're used to that a lot. So let's take a look at, Let's take a look at what that might look like in a test question. Now, let me change mine now that I'm on white. Got all my different colors I'm using today. Usually I just use a black background, but I'm trying to get into some different colors here. Usually, I'm always going to go to the answer choices here. but I can't really get much out of the answer choices. So I'm going to have to read the question, but I always work backwards, and we want to work backwards when we're looking at test questions. This one doesn't really lend itself to that, but the other ones in this presentation do. So don't worry about that. I will show you that in a minute. So we have, which of the following terms refers to how the level of language learners' negative feelings and motivation correlates with his or her ability to acquire new language skills? So keywords here are negative feelings and motivation. All right. Now, deductive reasoning. Let's talk about what that is. I like to go through the answer choices. You're not going to do this on test day. Obviously, you're going to move as quickly as possible on test day, but I always like to explain the answer choices because there's information there that will help you on test day. So deductive reasoning, that's when a student is looking or observing or figuring things out and then making a decision. All right. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm an English learner. I'm totally new. I'm in the pre-production stage. I'm silent. I don't know what's going on. I'm just keeping to myself and trying to figure things out. I'm completely freaked out. Okay. So I come into this class every day and I notice that on the board, there is a bell ringer. I don't know the word bell ringer, but I can see that there's something on the board and all the students are doing it, right? So I say, okay, after 3 or 4 days, I'm like, okay, they keep doing this thing in the beginning of class. That must be an assignment we're supposed to do. I'm going to do that. That's deductive reasoning. Or something when it comes to English, where you're observing something that happens in English, like maybe when someone asks a question or certain words, and you start to make observations about them and you draw conclusions here. Now, that's not really what's going on here because we're talking about negative feelings and motivation. So I'm going to cross that off, but deductive reasoning is a part of English language learning or language learning in general. So we do want to know what that is. Then we have extrinsic reinforce. Now, extrinsic reinforcement means, and it does go with motivation. This is probably the distractor here. And the reason why it goes with motivation is because if I want you to do something, I'll give you an extrinsic reward. For example, if you say a word correctly, I give you a Jolly Rancher. If you come in and sit down quietly and start your work, I give you a homework pass. Now, typically, extrinsic rewards are not the correct answer on the test as a way to motivate students because they are not sustainable. And once they get the excitement over the Jolly Rancher wears off, the motivation goes down. Now, it could be the correct answer on the test because we're talking about trying to motivate students here, and it is attached to motivation. But in this case, we're saying which of the following terms refers to how the level of language learners' negative feelings and motivation correlates. This is about a reward. And that's not what we're doing here. We're talking about negative feelings and correlation. So I'm going to cross that off. Now, affective filter, affect. When we are talking about this in our learning with our students, affect has to do with feelings. You'll see this a lot on the PE exam as well and the special education exam. The affective domain is how you feel about yourself, whether you're motivated or not. Like in PE, part of the affective domain is having good sportsmanship, understanding that team sports helps you, become, have a camaraderie and that feels good and stuff like that. So the affective filter does have to do with feelings here. And so as ESOL teachers, we are going to want to be thinking about the affective filter. And the way we do that is by making our classroom a place where ESOL kids want to come and where we are loving and helpful and we are kind. We are not making them speak English only. I'll get to that in a minute. That is very bad. We are asking them about their culture. This is a lot about being culturally aware. The affective filter is something we should be focused on here. We want them to have positive feelings, not negative feelings, and we want them to be motivated. So C is going to be the correct answer here because that has to do with that. And let's just discredit D. I want to talk about self-regulated learning. Self-regulated learning is when the student is learning and he or she is like stopping and kind of understanding what's going on in his or her brain. So metacognition has to do with this. Or the student might be like, wow, I've gotten a lot better this week. Last week, I couldn't read, a whole paragraph without stopping. And this week I read the whole paragraph without stopping. So that's self-regulated, where the student is understanding what's going on with his or her learning. And he or she is kind of, taking ownership of the learning. But when we talk about feelings and motivation, we're talking about the affective filter. That's why C is the correct answer there. All right. Now, once we get to principle 3, we are going to get to a giveaway. So we're going to do a giveaway here today. I always do giveaway on my live webinars. So stay with me if you're here live today. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about principle 2. And this is where we create conditions for language learning. All right. So creating conditions for language learning means we need to remember L1 and L2. Okay. L1 is the first language. So like I said, for me, I live in Florida. My ESOL students typically come from Central America, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Haiti. Doesn't mean I don't have students from other places, but typically the first language that my ESOL students have is Spanish or Creole. Okay. The second language is English. That's what they're trying to learn. Now, it's very important that we focus on this first language. A lot of people will say, well, you have to immerse yourself in a language in order to learn it. So I just think that they should just speak English only. And that is not the goal. The goal is bilingual education. We don't want to replace their first language. We want to support their first language and help them to learn their second language. Now, here's another thing. When you hear people say, they should just immerse themselves and they should only speak English. When I went to, I saw Eat, Pray, Love, and Julia Roberts went to Italy and she immersed herself and she learned the language. Okay, first of all, that was Julia Roberts in a movie, and you're talking about conversational Italian there, or a conversational way of speaking. In that case, yes, being immersed in the language does help. What we're talking about in schools is not just conversational English. We're talking about reading, writing, taking tests. You can't just say English only. You got to really focus on that L1. You have to support L1. Some students still don't have proficiency in their first language. So how are they going to have proficiency in their second language? If you're an elementary school teacher and you got second graders coming in who are from another country, who are not speaking English as or proficiently, well, they're also probably not completely proficient in their first language, because in second grade, you're still learning all of the words in your first language. So we always want to support L1. Just say no to English only practices. If you see English only on the test, it is wrong, and it is wrong to use as a method. Okay. Always look for answers where the teacher is supporting that L1. Okay. The goal is not to replace the first language. It's to support the first language and learn a second language. Now, let's see what that looks like on the exam. And then I'm going to go into the chat and see if you guys need anything. All right. So zoom in here a little bit. Now, this is from the Texas certification exams. I'm always going to cite it where it's from. And you can see here that I'm just going to go straight to the answer choices first, because they have long answer choices. I'm going to show you working backwards. Always works. So let's look at A. Cognitive development in L1 should be discontinued through the elementary years right away. Absolutely not. We do not discontinue development of L1. And you'll hear people, you're teachers. You're the ones teaching these students. You understand that L1 is so important. So as soon as I see that, I am cutting that out, because we need support in L1 in order to achieve cognitive academic success. So no, no, and no. B, cognitive development in L1 should be limited through the elementary years in order to achieve. I'm not limiting it either. No, I'm not. B is out. C, students who receive formal schooling in L1 do better at acquiring L2 than students with no schooling in L1. I like it, because formal schooling in L1 supports L2. Think about it. If you can't speak your first language, how are you going to learn a second language? I like C. I'm going to go with that. Let's go with D. Students who receive formal schooling in L1 do worse? No. Now let's read the question. Which of the following statements is primarily true about the relationship between a student's first and second language acquisition? And there it is, C, and I didn't even have to read the question. All I had to do was read the answer choices, and you will see this a lot on the exam. Look for that L1 support. Formal schooling in the first language, you're going to do better at L2. Now, here's where this comes in a little bit. They call this a gap in schooling. Sometimes when you have students coming from other countries where maybe they're living in extreme poverty, there might be a gap in schooling. So for example, you might have a third grader who's coming in at a first grade level because that's when the student stopped getting a formal education. This happens a lot. And now they're coming into the United States and they're third grade age, and you're the third grade teacher, and you have to kind of do all of this. So you're going to have to identify gaps in formal schooling. And you will see that sometimes from students who come from areas where they're experiencing extreme poverty, and sometimes not. I've had plenty of kids who have experienced poverty, who are off the charts, high level, right? But there are times where we have this gap. So again, every kid is different, and you're going to have to navigate that. But that's why C is the correct answer there. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing just for a second here. And I'm going to go to the chat, just see if anybody has any questions. Good morning, good morning. Looks like, no, you guys don't. I would like any recommendations for ESOL outside of iReady. I have dozens of non-English speakers in my 6th grade English classes. We don't have curriculum books yet, and I teach at a Title I school. I use Pixar shorts without words for bridging, but need more. Okay, so there is an organization called WIDA, W-I-D-A. That is an organization that is full of professional development for teachers who are like yourself, who maybe do not have the proper resources. And this is like the state of education, right? None of us have the right resources. I would start with WIDA, and I'm actually going to write this down, Sarah, and I'm going to do a little bit of research on this. I know that everybody's using iReady, at least in Florida. And it may not be your favorite thing ever. I know that some teachers don't like it. I'm not going to say anything because when I open my mouth, I get into trouble. So I'm going to do some research on that, but I want you to check out the organization WIDA, and that goes for everybody, W-I-D-A. It is a huge organization for ESOL and ESL, and it helps to find resources, professional development, all kinds of different things for that, okay? And that'll help you there, all right? Okay, anyone else have any questions? Let me just hop over to Facebook really quickly and just see if anybody's got any questions there, and YouTube really quickly. I just wanna make sure that I am not missing anybody. No, it looks like we're okay. And YouTube, just want to hop over there really quickly. And it looks like we are good there. Okay, so not very many questions, so that's great. All right, so let's just go back to sharing screen really quickly. I have one more question as it comes down to preparing students for this principle 2, which was L1 versus L2 here. All right, so here is a question from the ETS Study Companion. So this is going to be from not Texas. This is everybody else. Remember, I'm trying to pull from all different areas so that no matter where you are in the country, you're going to be able to use this resource. So in EL, now some people call these students English learners, EL, or English language learners, ELL, or limited English proficiency, LEP. There's always an acronym, right? But an EL approaches the ESOL teacher and says, give me a piece of paper. The EL's utterance is best characterized as an error in. All right, so this is where process of elimination is going to be your friend here. So remember, I'm always going to talk to you about the content, but I'm also going to teach you how to think like a test maker and use process of elimination. And so we have article usage. What's article usage? Those are words like a, the, and, oops, my handwriting, sorry guys, a, the, and an. And it looks like if they had said, give me an piece of paper, then that would be an issue with article usage. But the article is used properly here, so I can cross that off. Word order, give me a piece of paper. The order's fine. It's all in the right order. C, register. Okay, register. You'll see register a lot. Now let's go over here. Obviously, I gave you a little bit of the answer over here on the right-hand side, but register is formal versus informal discourse. And if you walk up to a teacher, typically, you're not going to say, give me a piece of paper. You're going to say, you know, Ms. Jasper, may I please have a piece of paper? Or can I have a piece of paper? That's normally how people talk to the teacher. But if a student is just learning, the student may know or may have heard, like, give me a piece of paper. The student may say that. That's where you have a little lesson on register. Now, here's what you don't do. That is so rude. I cannot believe you talk to me like that. I'm your teacher. No, you don't do that. The kid doesn't know. The kid's register is off. Okay. So you would maybe have a little mini lesson about, you know, formal versus informal. This also has to do with social linguistics, the rules of discourse, formality. Now, if you were talking to your friend and you leaned over and you said, hey, man, give me a piece of paper, that would be fine. But you wouldn't do that to the teacher or the principal or whatever. So that's where the register is. And then conjugation, oops, nope, we're not circling that. That is not the correct answer. Sorry, go back. Register is the correct answer. Conjugation is not. Conjugation has to do with verbs. So if the student said, gived me a piece of paper, or given me a piece of paper, or gives me a piece of paper, then there would be a problem with the verb being conjugated. So that's where that would come in. So, you know, even if you don't know, try to do process of elimination, and that's going to help you out a lot, right? Now, another thing about principle 2, when we talk about L1 versus L2, is role play. Role play is a really good activity to use when we're talking about pragmatics, social linguistics, speaking and listening, and register. This all has to do with the way we talk. It's not just about the language, right? If we go back to that question here, give me a piece of paper, that is grammatically correct. Give me a piece of paper. But the way in which we said it was off. So that's where role play comes in, and role play is going to really help you out with that. And typically on the test, if you see role play in the answer choices, it's probably the right answer, because it helps students get a real world application of how to apply language. And it kind of goes along with that, immersing yourself in conversational English so that you can, you know what's going on there. All right. Okay, so now we're going to do a giveaway. So I am going to be hosting a full 2-hour ESOL course next weekend, and it comes with a full study guide with over 200 practice test questions. So you get the 2-hour course, and you get the study guide. And I'm going to do a giveaway twice during this particular webinar today. And we are going to enroll you in this course. This course is happening next week. I'll talk about it next Saturday. You don't have to attend live. You'll get it over and over again. And there will be all kinds of extras. There will be 200 practice test questions. It'll be like a big course with a big book and all of that. Okay. So our first winner today is Jeremy. Pulled them out of a hat for me. My husband is Jeremy. You'll see him on Tuesdays for math. Rosalind, here comes where my bad second language comes in. Sejas, Rosalind Sejas. If you're here, let me know in the chat. Oh, awesome. All right, you're here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to email you a little bit later today with how to sign up and how to register and all that. And you'll get the study guide and everything, and you'll be able to join us there. Okay. In the chat, I'm just looking over here. This course is for students or teachers. This course is for teachers. This is for the teacher certification exams. All right. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next slide because that is a giant picture of myself. Let's move on. All right. Here we go. So now we're talking about principle 3, which is design high quality lesson for language development. High quality lessons. This is high expectations for all students. You want to look for answer choices that have this in it, no matter what test you're taking. This goes for special ed, PE, any subject area exam. You're always pushing the students towards the highest expectations you can possibly do, because you don't want to lower the expectations, because then they're not prepared for when they go out in the world. So we want to keep expectations high while scaffolding. Okay, so let's take a look at what that might look like on a test question. So here we are again. This is for Texas exams. The other one I showed you was for, this one was for ETS. This one was for ETS. I just want to show you how it doesn't matter what test. Okay, so let's go to the answer choices first. I always like to work backwards. Expect the ESL students to remain academically behind their peers. No. Absolutely not. We don't want them to remain behind their peers. B, discourage. Already, this word discourage is a negative word. It's on the bad word list. I'm going to cross it off, but let's just read it. Discourage ESL students from using non-standard English. No. If they're kind of breaking things up and they're using what we call Spanglish, or they're kind of, they're code switching a little bit, they're using part of their first language and they're using their second language, that's fine. And that word discourage is a bad word in my opinion, so no. C, provide lower level content, instructional materials to the ESL students. No. The reason why I chose this was for this, because a lot of people would choose this, and I'll show you why when we talk about the question. D, incorporate content materials that are culturally relevant to the ESL students. First of all, culturally relevant is on the good words list. And when I do my 2-hour course, we're going to go through all the good words that you're going to find in the correct answer choices, especially for this test. But culturally relevant is really important, right? We want to make sure that we're not just using the dominant culture all the time in everything we study. We want to make sure we're incorporating things from other cultures, and that's on the good words list. So we want to circle it. Now, let me show you why some people might have chosen this. And let me show you why working backwards is always better than starting from the top. Here we go. It is most important for a teacher who provides content instruction to ESL students to do which of the following. Now, we see this provide content instruction. We're thinking in English, right? If I'm a biology teacher, that's content instruction. If I'm a social studies teacher, that's content instruction. We might be tempted to go, well, they don't know them, they can't read it in English, so I'm going to give them lower level stuff. No, you're not going to do that. Now, might you have supporting documents on the side? Might you give them an English to or Spanish to English dictionary? May you have a paraprofessional in the room that might be translating for your students? Yes, but this lower level is a bad word. It's a bad word, and we don't do it and we don't use it. And so that's why starting from the end of the question, starting from the question, the answer choices is so much more positive for you when you're taking this test, because you can immediately weed out those bad answers, and you don't get into this thing where you're like, well, maybe. No, and no. We want to incorporate content and materials that are culturally relevant. And I would probably add here that have high expectations, all right, for all students. All right. Now, the fourth principle, and this is in pink, so I'm just kind of into pink these days, you guys. I know you might be like, geez, that's a lot of pink, but I'm kind of into pinks and blacks and teals and all that. So it looks like Miami Vice kind of right now. Anyways, principle 4, adapt language delivery as needed. So this is going to be your differentiation and your accommodations. And this actually goes back to that other question we just talked about. We're not lowering the standards. We're scaffolding. We are providing supports. Let's see what that looks like in a question here. All right. So this is from Texas, Tejas. Mr. Sato, a middle, oh, wait, sorry. I almost didn't do my own strategy. Let's start with the answer choices here. Okay, and I already see right here which two. That's going to stand out to me. All right. Asking the students to write down what they know about the day's topic at the beginning of class. All right. Giving students an English dictionary so they can write definitions of key vocabulary before each lesson. Writing definitions tends to be on the bad word list, guys, when it comes to really any content area exam. An English dictionary could be a good tool for an ELL student. So you notice in Texas, they call their students ELLs. Some other states say ELs. Either way, it's students whose first language is not English. And an English dictionary might be a good tool, but you're not going to have this kid write definitions. And I know that that's what they used to do to us when we were kids. My teacher used to say, open the glossary, write down. I mean, it'd be like 30 words. Why did she do that? Because she was tired and she wanted some time to herself. And she knew if we wrote down 30 definitions, that it was going to take up time. And that's fine. But it's not best practice. And so we want to stay away from things like that. So I'm going to eliminate that. C, pairing an EL with a native English speaker so students can read the text together. Okay. Be careful with this. We want to make sure that the native speaker is not playing the role of the teacher. Now, grouping students is a good practice, but we have to be careful that you're not putting the job onto the English speaker. Another thing you'll see is pairing ELL students with other ESOL students who are more proficient and having those students translate. It's not your English proficient students' jobs to translate for your non-proficient students, okay? So you have to be careful there. So I'm not gonna cross off C because it could be okay, but I'm cautiously not choosing it. D, having students pre-read sections at home prior to each activity. No, typically home, look, we do it. Of course, we say, hey, take this home, take a look at it. When we come back tomorrow, we're gonna go over it, or here's some at-home reading practice for sure. But probably as a strategy, pre-reading at home, especially if the student is ELL, the student's parents probably do not speak English either. It's probably going to be difficult. I'm going to cross off D, not the right answer. E, showing a short video clip about the day's topic at the start of class. Ooh, I like E because it's a activating background knowledge. And if I look at A is also activating background knowledge. Write down what they already know, like a KWL chart. What do you know? What do you want to know? And then after we read, what did we learn? So the K, what do you know already before we read, is activating background knowledge. So already I like A and E. I'm going to keep C, but cautiously. Notice I already answered the question without even reading the STEM. All right, Mr. Sato, a middle school science teacher, sees the ELLs in his class are having difficulty understanding new unit about volcanoes. Which two of the following would be most effective? The most effective strategies, again, most effective is going to be in the question stems a lot. You'll get into this thing where you're like, well, that could be it, or that could be it. But I'm talking about the most effective to help his students understand the content. Well, right away, KWL would be great. What do you know already about volcanoes? Oh, they explode. They have lava that comes out of them. Okay. In my country where I'm from, maybe you have a kid from Costa Rica. I used to live near the volcano. Okay, tell me about it. Now we're activating that background knowledge. We're starting to help the student understand, which will make the reading and the unit easier. Pairing is not going to be the correct answer here. And then showing a short video clip, maybe you show a video of the volcanoes exploding, you talk about it, and now when you read about it, you're more apt to see those words. So the two that are the best here are going to be A and E. And again, I didn't even have to read the question to get that. I don't recommend not reading the question, but I recommend starting backwards. All right, here we go with principle 5, monitor and assess language development. Now, here's the thing here, assessments. We want to be careful about our bias. There's been a lot of talk about bias. Yes, we all have bias. And it occurs in the classroom, it occurs on the street, it occurs with the people who check their bias all the time. Even the best teachers in the world who work really hard not to have bias still have bias. And there's bias in classroom materials, books, stories, reading passages. Sometimes reading passages have the dominant culture in mind, okay? And it occurs a lot in testing. And testing companies do their best to limit the amount of testing bias when it comes to culture and language, but sometimes they don't do the best job. And you'll notice this as a teacher, if you're reading and you're like, wow, I can't believe that this is what they put in here, because it's like really, you know, you have to be like American to understand this. It would be the same thing if you went to Italy or Vietnam or something like that, and you're trying to read something that's just specific to, you know, you're taking a test that has to do with something that's just so culturally specific to Vietnam. You're not going to be able to do that. Then it's not about the learning. Then it's not about the language. It's about this cultural piece here. So we need to make sure we're checking our own assessments, our own classroom materials. And somebody asked me to find some good materials. That's why WIDA is so good, because they really help to get the right materials in the classroom for teachers. Okay, I'll post in my newsletter some good materials for ESL. So if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, we'll talk about that at the end, but I'll post that in there. So that's actually a great idea. All right, so let's take a look. And then the other thing about Principle 5 that I wanted to make sure you understand is these two words, social linguistics and pragmatics. This has to do with like understanding society and culture of where you are, not where you came from, but where you are. And if the assessment has a bunch of social linguistics and pragmatics in it, you're not assessing reading, you're not assessing language, you're assessing what the student knows about the dominant culture. And then your assessment is not valid. And assessment validity and reliability is a big part of this exam. We will talk more about that in the bigger course, but you got to make sure you understand that when you are making your own teacher assessments, and when you're using, sometimes you'll use tests made by large testing companies and they have a whole bunch of bias in them. So you guys have to kind of navigate that. So let's take a look at what that looks like on the exam. So this is from ETS. This is from, let me just pull that down there. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. I'm going to move my toolbar because I can't really, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to go straight to the answer choices. Again, I don't like it when I see this big old thing here. I'm going to go right to the answer choices. Was the ESL teacher who designed the assessment fluent in more than one language? That doesn't really matter. I don't really like A, so I'm going to cross it off. B, will the students need a high level of socio-pragmatic competence to complete the assessments? All right, so my brain is now thinking this is about assessments. I have assessment, I have assessments here, and this is a good question to ask. Will the students need a high level of socio-pragmatic competence? Meaning, do they need to know a lot about the dominant culture that's being showcased in the assessment? So I like B. I'm just going to underline it there. Let's keep going. C, are the scores that student received on the assessment in the past reliable? I like the term reliable, but this past here, I don't know. Let me keep moving. D, do the assessments separate content area learning from language learning? I don't really care about that because I kind of want content area and language learning to kind of be immersed. So I know for sure A is out. B, C, and D are in the running, but I like B the best. Let's take a look at the question stem. Which of the following is the most appropriate question for Mr. Lewis to use as a guideline when screening the assessments for cultural bias? Well, there it is right there. If you're looking for cultural bias in your assessments or any other assessment, you're going to want to know, do the students need a high level of socio-pragmatic? This is like socio-pragmatic competence. And if they do, then there's cultural bias. Now notice I didn't have to get all lost in the scenario here. I narrowed it down to my answer choice. And then I just read the question stem. But let's go ahead and read this part here just to make sure. Mr. Lewis is a new ESL teacher, and he's evaluating several assessments that were used by the previous ESL teacher. Because of the diverse cultural backgrounds of his students, that means he's got kids from maybe Central America, Cuba, Haiti, South America, maybe all over the place, students from all over the place. Just in Central America, there's all kinds of different cultures. Because of the diverse cultural backgrounds of the students, Mr. Lewis wants to ensure that his assessments he chooses to incorporate in the curriculum do not exhibit cultural bias. We do not want to exhibit cultural bias, and that means B is going to be the best answer because we don't want students to have an understanding of all these little nuances about culture when we're talking about, a reading assessment or something else. All right. And number 6, this is our 6th and final principle we're going to talk about today. I can't believe it, I'm on time. Usually I go over, but I'm on time today. Principle 6 is engage and collaborate with the community of practice. Again, your PLCs, professional development, action research, all of that. Let's take a look at what that might look like. Now, this is from me. This is from my study guide for the ESOL. And let's take a look at the answer choices because, again, we have this big old scenario here, and then we have our answer choices. A, ask the ESOL department head for her lesson plans and compare strategies. I mean, do we do that? Sure, but I don't love it. Let's move on to B. Ask the principal to assign her a peer mentor who can observe her regularly. Asking the principal anything is kind of not the best answer. It's typically on the bad words list. The principal is busy. You're going to have to figure things out on your own if you haven't already noticed that. And usually it's a bad answer. So I'm going to cross it off. C, attend ongoing research-based professional development and ESOL instruction. Love it. Ongoing, meaning no matter how long you've been teaching ESOL, there's always something you can learn. Always. Research-based professional development, research-based, yes, yes, give me research-based. And then, of course, professional development is good. You're doing that today with me. So I love C. Let's go with D. Ask for a co-teacher until she is comfortable teaching ELLs. No, good luck with that. There's no money for that. You're not getting a co-teacher. Sorry. I mean, you might have a co-teacher if you're lucky, if you're in one of those districts that has some money, but most people don't get a co-teacher. All right. And A looks bad. Ask the ESOL department head for lesson plans. Okay. So let's go to the question stem. What can she do to make sure she is preparing the best she can? I still like C. Let's read starting here now. Ms. Jones is a 5th-year teacher and will be transitioning into a classroom with many ELLs. So she's been teaching for 5 years, but now she's going to have a lot of students whose first language is not English, and that's a whole other ballgame. She does not have a lot of experience teaching this population of students, but is excited about the opportunity. What can she do? Well, C all day is the best thing to do there. Will you for sure talk to the ESOL department head? Yeah, you should collaborate with the ESOL department head and be like, hey, I'm new. Do you have any tips for me? Is there anything I should be doing? You're going to do that. But attending ongoing research-based professional development to train in this area is going to be the best thing that she can do. The best, most effective thing. All right. All right. We have one more giveaway. Let me go ahead and stop sharing here. No, stop sharing. There we go. We have one more giveaway here. And I have Donna Bishop. Donna Bishop. I'm opening the chat. Are you here? Awesome, Donna. Okay. I'm going to email you as well. You'll be able to attend the 2-hour. And again, you don't have to attend live. The 2-hour is recorded as well. So if you don't want to spend another Saturday with me doing ESOL, you can just get the replay. So don't worry about that. Gail says, I found a great PDF on WIDA, but didn't know if it's okay to share with everyone. Yes, share it, share away. WIDA is an awesome thing. I see you have the URL in there. But basically, probably if you put, it's called the standards framework. Very good. There's like, if you do, let's just go there. I'm going to go there. Good thinking, Gail. Let me just go to WIDA really quickly. Okay, WIDA. I'm just going to do ESOL, WIDA. If you go into this website here, you are going to love it. There's going to be so much there. I'm going to hide my bookmarks. There we go. There is so much here for you to take a look at. There are standards right here, and the language on this website, the professional development on this website, all of these things here, SLD standards, early language development. You're going to want to take a look at this, and there is going to be so much there. Here it is right here. The framework, I believe, is what you're talking about. You can view it here. This is probably what you're talking about, Gail. This is the 2020 edition, kindergarten and grade 12. You guys, this is all the stuff you're going to see on so many of the exams. So definitely check out WIDA, great resource here. I will also link this up in the follow-up email. So I'll link WIDA. All right, let me stop share. Let me just go to see if there are any other questions here. All right. Okay, so I'm so glad you guys were here today. There's just a couple things I wanted to share with you before we leave. So I am hosting let me go back to ESOL. I'm hosting a full 2-hour ESOL where we will really dig into everything. And it comes with a full study guide. It's going to be 2-hour broken up, and there's going to be more video in there. I'm going to do a huge thing on literacy, because on this test, you're going to have a lot of literacy questions that are specific to like phonemic awareness, phonics, things like that. So if you want to sign up for this, you can. But before you sign up, use ESOL 20, ESOL 20, and it'll take this from $50 to $40. And you get a full study guide with that. It's almost ready. It's very comprehensive. I'm just finishing up the practice test. I'm trying to put as many practice test questions as I can in the study guide. If you're watching this webinar in the future, after September 25th, the study guide's ready. You download it as soon as you are in. But right now we're live. So that study guide will come along with it. You'll get a Zoom link to join when it's time. And just like with this, it's recorded, so you'll be able to replay at your convenience. So definitely check out this ESOL, ESL online course and study guide. It will help you. It's going to be very comprehensive, and you can always rewatch it. So if you can't attend live, get it anyways. You can rewatch it there. Also want to bring you your attention over to our YouTube channel here. There I am live. Let me just move my head so that I can show you that we do have a lot of different videos here. Consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We have so much information here. It is, let me go back to here. We have playlists. We have everything for praxis exams, Texas exams. I just did a new one for the math 7813. I'm working on new assistant principal stuff if you're trying to be an assistant principal. So definitely check that out. You're also going to want to like our Facebook page. Please do that. We moved from NavaEd to Kathleen Jasper. So this is my Facebook page. We also have a Facebook group that I'll link up, and that is all for teacher certification tests. Many of you are probably already in that group, but definitely, so like us here. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of that. And then, of course, check out our website. We have tons of resources and programs here, everything from the Pearson Foundations of Reading to the Praxis, core, the physical education, special ed, everything. And I'm making new programs all the time. This is going to be my latest, the full ESOL webinar, and that will come with the study guide there. The other thing I wanted to bring your attention to is if you're into physical books, I now sell all physical books on Amazon Prime. I used to sell them through my office, but it took like 10 days to get them, and it's just like too much. Amazon Prime gets them to you in 2 days. So this is much easier. You can see we have very good reviews, 180 5-star reviews for our Praxis 2. We just had a ton of people pass the SLLA. We have, oops, sorry about that. Lots of good reviews here. people really like our products. So if you are into the physical books, please go to Amazon. The offer code won't work on Amazon because Amazon is the one doing it. The offer codes work on our website here. And I also have an amazing newsletter. When you come onto our website, you'll get a pop-up. And I always do like little things in the newsletter that you're not going to see online or on Facebook or anything like that. Last week I did how to jazz up your Word documents, and I showed you how to like do all these tools, and people really liked it. So this week in the newsletter, I'm going to do how to jazz up your PowerPoints and make your PowerPoints really cool and stuff like that. So if you want to engage in a really awesome newsletter, definitely sign up, and I'll put a link to that in the email as well. So if anybody has any other questions? Do you guys have any other questions before I sign off today? I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I love going live on Saturdays. It really helps. I know you guys are tired, and a 5 o'clock webinar after a full day of school is like, no, but a Saturday morning one isn't so bad. You are going to get the replay to this if you did register using the link, so don't worry about that. And Sarah's asking, oh, math. Yes, math. We go live for math every Tuesday. Jeremy, my husband, goes live for math every Tuesday. It is on Facebook and YouTube. We go live on Facebook and YouTube. Those are the only places that we can go live. We don't go live on like Twitter or anything like that, but Facebook, from our Facebook page and our teacher Facebook group, and live on YouTube. But you can always go back, and let me just show you real quick. If you guys need help in math, which it seems like everybody does, let me just show you really quickly here. I don't know why I can't go to see, because I'm live here. Let's see here. Why can't I get to my playlist? There we go. Playlist. Under our playlist, you'll see these weekly live math sessions. There's my husband. And if you go to the playlist down here, you'll see we have so many weeks of math. And inside each session, let's pause him, there are the slides. You can download the slides, so you can work through these. I mean, we have like full-on math courses every Tuesday. And so I usually drop the slides into the Facebook group, because you get some perks when you come to the Facebook group. You get the slides early, but then they're always available in the description. So like, let's say you find this video and you're like, you know what, I want to do the slides first and work through them and then watch it. You can, or you can print the slides and just watch and follow along as Jeremy goes through math. People love Jeremy. He's super patient. He's great at math. I love Jeremy too, because he's my husband, but he does a great job on math. Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern time, Facebook or YouTube, and you can always catch the replays everywhere. All right. Okay. Taking 5-9, I'm feeling bold. You can ask 5-9 questions. Another thing you can do is you can email us questions at info@kathleenjasper.com. And if you have specific questions you want Jeremy to go over for math, he will. He'll put them in the presentation. So it'll go all the way up to 612. So you can do that. Thanks for your assistance. We have a session for special education certification tests. I have a playlist for special education, and I have a study guide for special education. And I am planning on a longer course for it as well. But for now, you definitely can get by with the study guide and the playlist. Lots of people have passed. We've gotten a bunch of 5-star reviews on that for people who have passed that. All right. Looks like I got to everybody here. Let me check Facebook. Any comments there? I have a test next, but would love to have the course, please. How do I register for the next weekend ESOL? You register for next weekend's ESOL on our website. It's going to be on the front page as soon as I sign off here. I'm going to change the website over. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm so glad you spent your Saturday with me. Go relax. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. You guys are working really hard. I know it. And I am so thankful for you. Please tell your colleagues who we are. If you enjoy this and you have friends who need help, we are here. And I am so excited to be helping people all over the United States. So let your friends and family know that we're here. If you need help in anything, hit me up at info, INFO, at KathleenJasper.com. And I'll be happy to film whatever and help you guys out any way I can. All right. Thank you so much and have an awesome day. Bye.